Okay, so we're going to start with Michelle Schenker. She has, are you there with me?
I am.
Okay, great. Um, she has worked as production coordinator for National Magazine in New York before moving to South Korea, where she taught English at State School, Private Academy, and Medical University. In 2015, she moved to the UK, where she continues to teach, specializing in academic and specialized English with a focus on writing. She enjoys spending her free time reading, cooking, and gardening. Michele holds a degree in English from the City University of New York, as well as an MA in TESOL from the University of Sunderland. Welcome, Michele.
Hi, thank you for having me. Um, I'm going to be discussing some ways to shift to more of a hybrid type of teaching because, as we all know, even if we go back to face, students are not going to be the same demographic. We're still going to have students who are going to be out of class for extended periods of time, based on whatever industry you're in, private schools, state schools, international schools, where I am right now. So it's been a weird year. Everybody's been getting used to going online, um, different technological skills amongst staff. It's been frustrating. I worked with people who were really happy working analog. I mean, they used smart screens in their classrooms, but they weren't really using internet technology to the fullest because they didn't feel that they had to. They had the students face to face, which I get. But as we know, literacy is more than just the words that we're using, the grammar, the syntax. I'm an English teacher, so I definitely care about that. But we need to make sure that students know how to do things. When I was growing up, I had to take penmanship. When I was 7, I had to learn how to write in cursive script. I had typing classes in middle school where I actually had to learn on an old mechanical typewriter. They wanted us to develop the strength how to type without looking at the keyboard or glancing once in a while. These were all things that they thought we would need to know when we were adults, when we were working, when we pursued whatever fields or careers we wanted to. But I also had a computer, and a lot of my friends didn't when we were kids. And so we learned these basic things. So I'm just curious here in the chat, if you don't mind, how many of these do you know? How many of these files do you guys know? It's a little interactive for mine, if you're here. I'm curious. Everyone knows what a document is. Just curious. There's 18 of them. How many of these 18 are you familiar with? It's pretty good, Zuhair. And which are the ones you don't know? I'm just curious. That's really good. Yeah, it's a range. Which ones are a bit confusing? I mean, we know this one's document, this one's text. It's kind of like a document. All right, that's that you're running a program. This is the Mac equivalent here, AI, Adobe Illustrator. So you've got the people that work with images. You've got JPEG, PNG. You've got the GIFs. Please don't kill me if I mispronounce it. You've got PowerPoints. Photoshop document. So this is, and these 3, EPS, CDR, and AI are all different types of illustrating things. Yeah, Photoshop document. You've got, anyone know what, I mean, everyone knows what a PDF is, right? PDFs are magical. Okay, and there's a few that are missing, obviously. DMG, this is the Mac equivalent of EXE, which is when you run something. So if you download something and you're, yeah, it's the Mac equivalent. So there's different ones here. All right, cool. So I figured in this session, I'm just curious, I wanted to see what you guys knew. We'll talk about stuff that'll make it easier if you have to work from a computer from now on, because we probably will. You'll have some students streaming at some point if they're sick or if they're quarantining, or if you just want to continue with social distancing, because you can have all of the students on. So we'll talk about the different types of classes you might have and how to back things up if you are using online methods rather than paper. Usually we just have notebooks and folders. And then we'll have an opportunity where we think of some what would we do in this situation? So first, the two different setups. Definitely, if you are working from home, make sure you get a comfortable setup. I mean, this is a joke here. This is what my husband suggested. I was suggesting we get this chair. If you can have two monitors, go for it. It makes life a lot easier, even though you look away from the camera a lot. I definitely say stick to a browser, even if you haven't been. It makes sense to just have all of your bookmarks everywhere. Microsoft Edge is okay. I just like Chrome, I think, because I'm using Google for a lot of my class activities. And then once you have that, you've got all of your shortcuts. It's great to have all your shortcuts ready. Have it as your dedicated work browser. That way, if you have to travel, if you're in a classroom and you've had an update or something, it's really convenient. I was one of those peripatetic teachers that had to travel to 7 classrooms one year. And so it just made sense to be able to log in to my account and have all of my bookmarks ready. And I have all my important things on the bottom, snip and sketch, very important. We're using Teams. Right, so when you get into the classroom, one of the things that's very important is that students should have a microphone and a headset, because some of the students are going to be streaming in and you want people to be able to communicate. Now, they're not going to be using their headsets the majority of the time, but they need to have the ability, because you want students to be able to interact with one another. Streaming students have to have a laptop or a tablet. In my classrooms, I make sure all of my students have a laptop or a tablet, or if they're working from a desktop from home, but they need to have all of these peripherals. It's very important. Every student logs in, even the ones that are in the classroom. Just make sure they mute their mics. Cameras are optional. Yeah. Another thing that I found is very useful is to use any online calendars with students. It depends on the age level, but if you're able to share permissions with them, you can share calendars. I have on here, this is just my schedule for this week. I have like a bunch of different IELTS classes. I have different meetings, and students that are involved in certain things are invited, and I have those set up. It's also really good to have a record of work or a scheme of work. I recommend that you copy it though, and make sure students can't edit things. And it's a good homework diary. Here's something I did for one of my IELTS classes. I just took a screenshot of what we were doing so that when we go to the next class, we can look back. What did we do last time? Last class, check homework. This class, what did we do? It's just a good record. So I like Star Trek. So you first have to decide, what is the mix of your class? Is it going to be most of the students streaming, 1 or 2 students in the classroom? Are you going to have even 50-50? Are you going to have only 1 or 2 students streaming and everyone else is in the classroom? You need to think about the logistics when you plan your lessons, but you get the hang of it after a while once you get the hang of your class. The tech issues, such as turning off their mics, you don't want feedback loops, and then just making sure that the first 5 minutes is useful. You just want to make sure you're giving a meaningful time. They're not wasting the first 5 minutes while everybody's logging in and when everybody's saying hi. But remember, in a regular brick and mortar classroom, students would have probably spent a minute unpacking their things. So you have to have routine. So first, you look at where we are. I think every teacher is very comfortable with all face-to-face. And I think with the lockdown, teachers are really comfortable with all streaming. I mean, for some teachers, it took a bit of learning how to do it again, but by now we're very comfortable. It's when we have these mixes. Are we going to have 1 or 2 students in the classroom? I've had that. Are we going to have 1 or 2 students streaming and the rest in the classroom? I've had that. So I decided in September to just start playing around and trying a bunch of theories with them. So again, all students in the classroom should automatically mute their mic. Now I have this on the wall over here. You can see I had this, I left it there. Clean your desk. That was something we have to do, which I like. I think we should just stick with that even post-pandemic. Log into Zoom, reminding them to mute, log in. This was the LMS we were using Canvas. I like using Moodle a bit more, but have any homework open and ready if there is, and be prepared to be called on to remind us where we left off. We know where we're supposed to be, but this just keeps them ready to start from the beginning. So when they walk into the classroom, even while they're cleaning and logging into everything on their laptops or tablets, they're ready. They came prepared. And then of course I thank them and they clean at the end. Again, any students streaming in should have all of their stuff ready before they join the Zoom. So they have a slightly different checklist, and you'd have that written on your syllabus or on your LMS, wherever. I've got that on my Canvas page. So, right. So the first 5 minutes, I really like making the password change. So get the students used to changing the passwords and checking their emails. This keeps them a little bit more active. It makes it almost like boring communication of ancient emails. They say that's so old-fashioned. Old-fashioned emails are so boring. We could make it more like a game, because I like to make the homework the password. I'll find some way to make a puzzle out of the homework, and they have to do that. Or you could just chat with the streamers and see that they've got their stuff sorted while the students in the classroom are just getting ready. And it makes them want to hurry up because they're not part of the chat. But just make sure that it's structured. Do it every class. Don't make it sporadic, because then students will come late. If they come late, there has to be some sort of penalty. Now, I have a few different profiles here. This is one I had in September. I had literally 2 students, but I had like 16 students later on. It was rolling enrollment as they started coming in. And so I played around with this. This was my model, my control. So I had 1 in the class, 1 streaming in from China. So we definitely played around with the chat, getting them used to drawing, that they were making this as a shared screen. We played around the more basic stuff. So we were looking at bar charts, how to analyze data in bar charts for the IELTS exam, which is an international exam for students for English. And you can see how they both wrote it differently. And it's really useful. I made them write it to everyone, but there's also the feature of being able to write privately to the teacher, as we all know. Here's a class where I had 1 student in the class and 3 streaming, and it grew to 7 streaming with just him in the class. So we called him the professor, but he has lots of screens. He brought in an actual separate wireless mouse. He had his pen, his Apple Pencil, I believe. It was really cool. And you can see he's writing here. Can all of you check my answers? He was really into getting the students who were streaming involved with him, because he was lonely. All right, and this one I had 3 streaming at the time. This was early in the term, and 2 face-to-face. They were working together, and I had the 3 that were streaming working with me. That's only because he had just joined the class, so she was showing him around, and it made more sense. But the 3 of them were sending me their work privately so that they wouldn't be interrupted. We were just working separately in a different group. This is a class that had I had several in the class and just 1 person streaming. So whoever sat at this desk that day would team with the student who was streaming in. And I joined this group, but I had everybody else working in breakout rooms as well. Well, no, these weren't in breakout rooms, but when they had to share screens, I would put them in breakout rooms. But it was good, because Khan got to work with all these other people, right? Very important things, though. If you are sharing calendars, don't put any names on titles if you share screens, because in England, anyway, we have GDPR, but it's just data protection. You don't want to share people's information. And I have it so that they could only message me or the whole class. I just don't want students chatting with each other. If you can get distracted, I would have. And with annotation, I allow annotation, but you have to know how to disable it on the controls. It's really important. My friend had an assembly, and someone drew something very naughty over someone's face. So now we need to know how to get evidence when students are working online, even the students in the classroom. So how do you store their work? Oh, sorry, went up too quickly. So how are you storing their work? How are you giving feedback? And how can you show that the students are actually reflecting on everything that you're working on? You need to show that they're reflecting and improving. So here are, this is 2 essays that I got from one of my students. And so I would give my comments and I would just note them directly on it. No more pens. It's great. I feel bad for Pilot pens. They've probably lost a lot of money this year because teachers are now doing everything online. But it's better to send it as a PDF. This is one thing. I try to make sure my students understand that the PDF is the most convenient document if you can edit them. So we work on editing PDFs because it's required for a lot of things when they're adults. They think about when they have to send CVs, when they have to apply to things. Right. So also not everybody uses legal versions of Word or Pages, or that they'll use Open Office or so many different programs, but PDFs can be read universally. So I put the comments on that. It's not as pretty as if they could just hover over it on a Word document, but so we practice from the very beginning. Here's an example of a rubric that I gave them. And I told them from 0 to 9, I want you to look at the differences and highlight the key words so that you know what separates these different bands, these different grades. She didn't feel that she would ever get an 8 and a 9. We had to talk about that. But she ended up getting a 7.5, which was very good. But you could see that I get them used to translating things. I would have preferred her writing organization over here, but it's nice. And you can see that they're getting the hang of editing PDFs, because then I have them use that same rubric and look at where they think they are based on my comments. And they talk about why they have it, which I think is really good. They reflect on it. They're like, okay, what do I need to move up? And you show them reasonable steps up, nothing ridiculous. But then because it's an editable file, which you show them, you're like, hey, you can now look at what do you need to improve. So this student has actually shrunk both of her things. She had one on the top, one on the bottom. She's got them here. And then she went, it's better than paper. So if you've ever had those students who like to highlight everything and make them look perfect, these students will love it. And students that don't do that can find that it's much easier to do. So, right. So this is, now I'm throwing this back to you. I'm just curious, what opportunities do you think, like, what things do you think would go well in a class of 2 students streaming and 2 students face-to-face? What are some opportunities that you would take? You could type it in the chat. I've got it open. Or some possible issues that might arise. Right.
Attendees can also open their mics and communicate with Michelle if you like.
Yeah, let's, because I like to do that. That's fine. Yeah, if people don't want to type, they can speak.
We're waiting for the chat response.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit interactive.
You can kindly open your mic and ask or reply to Michelle's questions if you like.
Yeah, or a secondary question. I mean, if you can't, which of these situations do you think you'd be the most comfortable in, and why? I'll type it here. And then uncomfortable. See, dual coding.
Does any of the attendee wish to reply to this?
Yeah.
I don't think so, Michelle. I think you can go ahead. I'm sorry about this.
No, it's fine. It's going to be a bit short, though. I apologize. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, don't think that the tech is overwhelming. It's not, but even if you know a lot of these things, there are always newer things opening. I mean, I'm using Microsoft Suite, which is quite convenient, but a lot of teachers think that they're going to be replaced by AI. And I just feel like that's not what's going to happen. We're going to be like librarians. Everybody can use Google and search for things, but we can curate it and help deliver much more differentiated work to our students with these convenient tools. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so what has been the biggest challenge for you in doing this kind of blended work? Like in one of your slides, I saw that some of the students were in person present there, and the others were streaming. So how did you manage that like blended kind of instruction?
It's fun. The students really like actually working with each other because you want them to feel that they're members of the class. That's the point of this. You want these students who are streaming to feel that they're getting value from the classes. They're members of the same classroom. It doesn't matter where they are. And you tell this to the students because any of them could actually get sick one day and they could be home and they don't have to miss the class. They can still be a member. Anyone, we could have lockdown again and all the students could have to go online and there's no interruption with we need to reteach these students how to go on Zoom. No, they've been using it. They can socially distance, they can work with each other and collaborate at different hours. It allows for asynchronous learning. So once they get all of these things that are advantages for them, they all start to get a little bit more into it, and then they're involved. Even the students in the classroom, they're muted, but they're sharing screens with students in different countries, and they're all participating in the chat with each other. And then when it's time to talk, when we break up into the breakout rooms, you just have to think about who you're pairing with who. You don't want to always have the students in the classroom together and the students streaming together. You want to break those students up. So think about your seating arrangement a little bit when it comes to people talking into microphones. But if they've got headphones and they've got mics, if there are people in the same classroom who are in the same room, make sure that they have some sort of hand signal. I'm going to put on my mic now, mute yours, or we're all going to get a headache. And it's just little things like raising the hand. It's like the talking stick that we had when we were camping, when we were kids.
All right. But I would like to know more, like a little bit, just one comment from you, like for many teachers, even just the online teaching is a challenge. So this blended work as an instructor, as a teacher, how did you find that? Was it very difficult to handle? Did you describe the rules before doing that to students? Or okay, carry on, please.
The whole first week of the term was really just making sure we were all comfortable with everything, but it was communicative because as an English class, it's what's the word? I can't think of it right now. Terrible. It's an opportunity to explain processes to one another, how to do things, and it becomes repetition and it becomes rote. And then by the time in 3 weeks if you have rolling enrollment, if you have new students joining in the class or students coming from distance learning to face-to-face, because sometimes their situation will change midterm. We don't know going forward, and we just want to be available for all of our students, regardless of where they are. So you have to troubleshoot little things like that, but they get used to it after a week. And when you have new students, it's almost like a mentoring, guiding thing. You could say, all right, Marie, would you mind going into this room and explaining to our newest classmate how to do this and what we're doing, and I'm going to come in and check and make sure that you're doing it right in a couple minutes, but we'll be right with you. And it's like being in a classroom, and they can do that, and they can share their screens and share everything. So it's like sharing notebooks. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you. If I can add one more thing here.
Sure.
Right. So all of them were using the same kind of materials, the same books, or?
Yeah. I scanned copies of them for the students who left their books behind before they went home. We felt a lot of them had, but they had the books, and any materials were put on our LMS. And again, with logging into everything, the students would be logged into their Zoom or their Microsoft Teams. They'd be logged into their They'd be logged into whatever we were using that day. They always had to be. So all the materials were available.
Right. And usually how long are these kind of sessions? These blended ones?
Between 1 and 2 hours. We didn't want them to be too long. And if it was for 2 hours, we would have a break in the middle where we just stretched or something and give everyone 10 minutes to go to the loo.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks.
My pleasure.